Hello, everyone, and welcome to an outstanding content here of the Gridiron Glory. We, Will and Tad, are both very excited to bring you this game from the AFC Divisional round with the two-time defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs coming away with a 23-14 victory over the Houston Texans in a completely fair played game of football. Um, yeah, just a lot of obviously that's said tongue in cheek. There was several controversies with some close calls that ended up going the Chiefs' way as they generally seem to do, or at least that's how it's perceived, that there's these calls that tend to help the Chiefs on as they
Uh,
go. And if you'd like a chance to speak on that, Mr. Wicker, you'll have your chance.
yeah, Tad. I would like to first personally ask you, what would you? Yes, Tad. Yes, yes. What would you personally define as a roughing the passer penalty?
Okay, so roughing the passer is when there's okay, so the first element in roughing the passer is there has to be a passer. So you have to be passing the ball. And the roughing part is when you go and you just do some blatant roughhousing on the quarterback or other passer. I mean, the passer doesn't have to be a quarterback necessarily, but generally it is. So just some blatant roughhousing around the quarterback. You just maybe you hit him a little late, maybe you hit him in a bad spot. Very
Uh,
subjective call.
so like if a defensive player, I mean, just in general, so like if a
Yeah.
defensive player is coming at you full speed and he just doesn't stop that instant of a second, it's worth a roughing the passer flag. Is that what I'm gaining here?
Yeah, I mean, if there's a passer and he's trying to pass and there's some roughing going on, then I mean they'd probably throw a flag for roughing of the passer.
Gotcha. Yeah, Tad. I just want to get all into the Houston Texans season and what a beautiful season that they had, and how in many portions of this game they got screwed by god awful officiating. The officiating in this game was very poor at many times. Obviously, like not every single play, but Tad, there was some extremely controversial calls by the refereeing crew in this game. With that being said, Tad, I would like to humbly, personally, sincerely, genuinely ask you, yes, where would you rank the greatest referee of all time, Clay Martin, who, folks, get this, is 7-0 when he referees the Chiefs.
I believe with this win he's actually improved to 8-0 now. So Mr. Clay Martin, obviously the greatest official of all time in terms of helping one team advance. Obviously that's tongue in cheek. But in the end, I mean, there were some controversial calls. It's unfortunate that that's how this game is going to be remembered. But in the end, I mean, these calls can impact who win and who lose, and it's very unfortunate that there's a subjective game, and it's there's definitely a perception that the refs helped the Chiefs, and I mean that didn't change in this game. I mean the refs, there were
I
a
mean,
couple calls that could have gone either way, and as they generally seem to do, it benefited Kansas City.
it's the same thing, Tad, that we saw with the New England Patriots with when they had Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. I mean, you kind of mentioned it. There's like a stigma behind it, so
Mm,
um, I don't know. It's just my personal opinion. And
sure.
Chiefs fans, if you're watching this podcast, let's talk about some of those calls in the comments. Like I wasn't even going into full detail and description on all of them,
Sure.
just kind of generalizing. But yeah, Tad, um, if the Chiefs fans want to talk to me about the refereeing that
And I will say one thing that the NFL could do to help themselves would be to, if there's like a situation like this, they need to do like what the XFL, now the UFL does, where there's you where you can challenge like an aspect of a play to like make things more reviewable. I mean, because obviously there were some questionable calls, and I mean, and maybe that's something the NFL could look at, like where you could review a roughing the passer, stuff like that. I mean, I think that's something that they could look at. But I mean, yeah, the Kansas City Chiefs, I mean, they got some help, but in the end they did what they have to do. They scored when they needed to. And the Houston Texans, I mean, if you want to upset a team like Kansas City, you have to, aside from the officiating issue, you have to play a better game than they did. I mean, the Houston Texans left a lot on the table. You missed two field goals and a PAT. You have a blown kickoff coverage on the very first play of the game that's made worse with the personal foul for unsportsmanlike conduct by the special teams unit. So there's a lot of things that the Houston Texans can look at for what went wrong, aside from some controversial calls, wouldn't you say?
I mean, yeah, you could say that, Tad. There was a specific moment where Patrick Mahomes did go in for a slide, and then two Texans players collided helmets. What's your take on like quarterback sliding and things like that in today's NFL?
I think it's a terrible rule. I think that the NFL needs to look at that. I think college football needs to look at that. Just all forms of football. I mean, the quarterback slide is a play that's designed to protect the quarterback, and in the modern NFL, quarterbacks are taking advantage of it, and using it as a way to try to draw a cheap foul. Patrick Mahomes does that. He does that. He's not the only quarterback that does that. Like Josh Allen does it. Lamar Jackson does it at times. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think that that's seriously something the NFL needs to look into because that's a very poorly designed rule and it's being easily exploited by players like Patrick Mahomes.
Yes. But the Texans obviously did need to go out and play a better game. I mean, you can say that and everything, yeah.
Mhm.
But I don't care about that. I just want to speak on how great the Houston Texans are, despite the result, Tad. All things the Houston Texans, because the Houston Texans, Tad. I mean, you got C.J. Stroud, man, what a guy. I mean, what can you say about C.J. Stroud? 19 to 28, 245 yards, zero touchdowns, zero interceptions, ran for 6 carries for 42 yards. What a guy in this game. 18 carries for 88 yards for, yeah, Joe Mixon, Damon Pierce. No, but overall, Tad, these guys are incredible. And this game, like this result, Tad, I don't know. It's so hard for me to actually agree with your take earlier about the officiating, just because I really can't get over that. I am just Tad, like this Chiefs team has taken on a villain role in the NFL, and
Yeah,
yeah, which team is gonna bring the evil empire down? Is
yeah.
just
Which
kind of how
team
I'm
is
seeing
going to
it at
bring
this
them
point. And
down?
I mean, and the thing about the Chiefs is they know this. Like they know this. They know that they're like the villains of the NFL, and they've embraced it. Patrick Mahomes, even himself, has like embraced like a
Yeah,
villain role, and I mean, he even knows it. So, just what do one of these teams need to do to finally topple them? And you just really, really hope that the Buffalo Bills next week can maybe do something about that.
yeah. I mean,
I don't mean to necessarily look, Chiefs fans, like and there's a reason I say this because like we know what you've done. Can someone else have a turn?
yeah. I mean, the Chiefs. They're going to go out there and they're going to compete like they always do, and it's going to be. I mean, the target is squarely on their
Sincerely, a
back. It's
salty
been
Broncos fan.
the target is squarely on their back. It's been on their back since they won the first one, and then there's been some winning after that. There's just the target is there. I mean, you think that the Buffalo Bills don't want to end the poor streak that they've had against the Chiefs the last several playoffs. I mean, you think Josh Allen doesn't want to avenge all the playoff losses he's had to Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he's been blocked by Patrick Mahomes for basically his entire prime at this point. And I mean, it's time to see if Josh Allen can make the plays needed to get past him. And at this point, I mean, the Chiefs, I mean, they're going for history at this point with the three straight going for that. It's tough to hear for haters of the Chiefs for sure, but at this point, I mean, it's just gonna be can somebody go out and beat them, like you said? I mean, somebody's just gonna have to show up and do it. I think at this point, the Buffalo Bills are gonna have as good a chance as anyone, and because they're gonna want it. Obviously, the Bills they want it more than anybody else. They've been shut down by the Chiefs in terms of like blocked out of the Super Bowl for the past half decade. They're ready to make their move, and I think if anybody's going to do it this year, it's at this point it's going to be Buffalo.
Tad, I guess if I had to ask, yeah, Travis Kelsey, the tight end, number 87. Sorry, I'm sorry. Yeah, Taylor Swift's boyfriend. 7 catches, 117 yards, a touchdown. Yes, Tad. Where would you rank Taylor Swift's boyfriend amongst tight ends in the league?
Yeah, I mean the thing with Travis Kelsey is he can do what he's going to do in the regular season. Same with Mahomes, but you know when the situation calls for it in the postseason, he's going to rise to the occasion. And become this player that goes out there and makes the plays you have to make. Obviously he's aging out of being one of the top tier tight ends in the league. He's no longer like the clear cut tight end one as he was in his prime, but he's still a valuable tight end to have.
Still a valuable tight end to have. Would you say he's better, or would you? Who would you say is the better tight end overall historically, him or Rob Gronkowski?
Boy, that's a tough one. I feel like Kelsey is probably going to have the stats. He has the longevity, but I feel like there's no tight end that matched what prime Rob Gronkowski did on a short time. Like if you're interested in like long term, who can do it longer, Travis Kelsey. If you're interested in who can give you the best prime, Gronkowski.
Prime Gronkowski. I mean, the greatest tight end of all time.
Hard to argue with that.
Um, yeah, Tad. What about George Karl Laftis? What do you think of him? Chris
Yeah,
Jones.
obviously Karloftis, he
Yeah,
was a beast at Purdue,
you're
and
gonna have
now
to hype
he's
these guys up
with
because
Kansas City. He's was their first round pick in 2022, and he's had a very respectable career. He had 8 sacks this year, 10.5 sacks last year. Last year was his best year, and now this year he's still going out there making plays, being a disruptive force. I mean, this Chiefs defensive line is very solid for sure with him, Chris Jones. And then the cornerback Trent McDuffie, of course, he does his thing. So yeah, in the end, I mean the Chiefs, they're not just a one man team. It's not just Patrick Mahomes carrying them. It's the defense is a lot of the reason why they've been able to sustain this run this year. And now here in the playoffs, they continue to play at a high level.
yeah, sure. I mean, but Patrick Mahomes, the supervillain, does lead his squad of minions very well, if you will.
That he does. That he does.
The super villain Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one next week, like you said, with the Bills. I mean, I mentioned it in the Bills episode. Can the Bills slay the dragon? I mean, the Chiefs, they've been here, they've done that. It, are the Bills going to take the next step, or does history repeat itself? It's going to be interesting to see what happens. So yeah, that's what I have for the Chiefs. Looking
Or
at
the
what's up,
I was gonna say the future of the Texans.
the future of the Texans. Yeah, that is definitely something that we can look at next. What's your take on their future?
Tad, it's just gonna be interesting to see what happens considering the Texans did fire their offensive coordinator, Slowick, after 2 seasons. So obviously CJ Stroud, he's going to have to learn a new system next year. So that'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. You do have the 25th pick in the draft. So there's that. Looking at their roster, obviously, yeah, Davis Mills, easily the best player. I'm kidding. Um, Xavier Hutchinson for sure. Yeah, Tat. Yeah, really quick, where would you rank Xavier Hutchinson amongst wide receivers in the league?
Yeah, let's take a look at Xavier Hutchinson's stats for the year. He had a whooping 12 catches for 117 yards and not a single touchdown. I mean, in terms of like two deep receivers, I mean, I would unfortunately have to rank him near the bottom of the league in terms of his productivity. I mean, the 2023 sixth round pick out of his college. So yeah, he's had a fairly like he's first off as a sixth round pick to make a roster that's a quality work, so credit where it's due, but he's still yet to break out a significant role.
He still has yet to break out a significant role there. The defensive side of the ball has a lot of experience, though still kind of young. Looking at the offensive side of the ball, yeah, I've had Xavier Hutchinson, easily the best player on the entire roster, um, solely based off of college choice. But
I mean, yeah, his college choice shows me that he still has some maturing to do and he still has to improve his decision making.
you see, I was personally feeling that way about, yeah, Kurt Hinish, the defensive tackle.
Fair
Um,
enough.
I was thinking that when it comes to college choices, that's what I was thinking for him. Um, you might also question Chris Boyd's college choices. You might also even be able to question, hmm, really, yeah. There's not really any other college choices questioned from what I'm seeing here besides that.
What Yeah, a lot of questionable decisions by the
Yeah.
Houston Texans staff, but
Yes.
and
Yes.
their roster.
The
So
Houston
yeah,
Texans had listen. The Texans. I mean, it's not their fault that they ran into Clay Martin. I mean, Clay Martin. He's a hell of a referee. He gave the Texans everything that they could handle.
he cooked.
So I mean, Clay Martin cooked in this game. So
Yeah, I
I
mean
mean,
he
you
runs
just
his
gotta
record
hope,
out to
Dad,
eight
that
and
next
zero.
season. You just gotta hope that next season in the playoffs that the Texans don't get Clay Martin on the refereeing crew and they'll be good.
And another thing they could do is they could win more games in the regular season, and then you don't get a four seed. You want to improve your seed. I think that's another thing they could work on doing.
I mean, I thought, Ted, what we know about the AFC South right now, you and me, I would still pick the Texans to win it next year.
Yeah, I would too.
I mean, you got the Jags and the Titans, probably the two worst teams in football right now, and
Or
then
yeah,
yeah, the Colts are like such a mid weird team.
yeah, they
The
don't know what they're
Texans,
doing.
like
I
the
mean, we'll
Texans are.
see.
I mean, I would pick them right now to win the South again next year. So,
I would too.
like
I
you
mean,
said, can you improve your seating?
obviously, I mean, we'll do a lot more in-depth research before the season starts, before we make an official prediction. But at this point, I think it's safe to assume they'd be the favorites. I think it's going to be paramount for CJ Stroud to take another step forward if they want to improve their chances of legitimately competing in the AFC.
Like overall, him as a quarterback, what like I would just say that he can maybe improve the use of his legs a little bit more.
Improve the use of his legs, cut down on the bad plays. There's been like 12 interceptions. They'd probably want that to be lower. So I mean, there's things he can improve on for sure. I
But
think he will.
I didn't really have any other final thoughts on the Houston Texans, and I certainly did not have any final thoughts on the other team.
The Kansas City Chiefs, you mean? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's all I had on the game. Yeah, it's gonna be an exciting one next week. Bills Chiefs, the rematch of all the other playoff matchups they've had. So please continue to stay with us, follow for great championship weekend content. We have like I said, the Bills Chiefs. We also have the Commanders versus the Eagles. And the winners of these games, they'll be in the Super Bowl. It's really getting down to it, guys. So please continue to like, subscribe, and follow our content. We're excited to bring you phenomenal content throughout the end of the football season. Thanks for watching.
Gridiron Glory. Hello?